Welcome to the story room. I have a creepy tale for you called Curious Eyes. I received this email a while back, then not long after discovered what had really happened. Should I make sure her mom is okay? I didn't know if I should share this or not, but I think I should now. I've done a lot of research and have never heard of anything like what she describes. Please let me know if you have. I've always loved cats, but have been deathly allergic to them. I used to joke that cats would be the death of me. But this isn't quite how I expected it to be. I remember the first time I was around a cat. I reacted so badly because I didn't know I was allergic and had it up on my face. My eyes and throat swelled shut, and I ran to my mom and scared the hell out of her. Obviously, I was rushed to the hospital. I was 8, and we just moved into a new house in a new state. It was in the mountains of Tennessee, which I liked because I was fascinated with nature and animals. The house was old and beat down and kind of gave me the creeps. Everything was new and different, and my mind turned anything odd into a terrible beast. For instance, there was a mannequin in a bathtub in our basement, for some reason, and its arm was sticking up. Our washer and dryer were down there, and you had to go outside to get into the basement. The first time I saw it was doing my father's laundry after dark, and I screamed and went running upstairs, leaving the washer open and running with my clothes all over the floor. My parents found it funny that I thought some mad murderer was in the basement, and my dad took me down there to show me it was nothing dangerous, just a dress mannequin. I also noticed that my bedroom door looked like someone had stabbed a hole in it in some mad rage, but chalked it up to some kid making a spy hole, and thus used it as such, since my parents' room was across from mine. At the time, my brother and I were sharing a room for my parents' convenience. After that, my brother and I, who was 10, got curious and adventurous, having exploring hikes in the woods, but never actually going far. Treasure hunts, the usual kids' things. We started getting bored with the outside and kind of curious about the attic outside of our room that the landlord told my parents to stay out of. One day, when our parents were out chopping wood for the fireplace, yes, the house was that old, we decided to get a chair, tie a jump rope to the handle and open it. Rickety wooden stairs unfolded noisily, and we stared up into the darkness. My brother went, got a flashlight. I made him go first, and followed close behind and to the side, peeking around him, and then he started shining the flashlight around. Inside were the usual things: old junk, clothes, a broken TV, boxes, skeletons, chests, skeletons. He jerked the flashlight back and we both froze in terror. There were 4 slumped-over skeletons in the corner of the attic. I covered my mouth as I gazed at them. One looked to be a adult. 2 were the size of kids, me and my brother's size, and a somewhat large cat. I gasped and took a step back, and it heard me. That feline creature of bones heard me and raised its head, at which point my brother gasped too. It stood up and started walking towards us, somehow held together by some invisible force. We both screamed and ran down the stairs, shut the attic door, and ran out to our parents. My brother frantically started telling them what had happened, while I just cried, trying to catch my breath. Thoughts raced through my head. How can something without ears hear me? How can something without eyes see us? How can something with no muscles move? How can something dead be alive? I was so confused and scared. Of course, our parents had the usual reaction of thinking it was us having active imaginations, then got on to us for getting into the attic when we were told not to. I went back inside with them, but pulled a chair to the hall to cut the jump rope from it with my pocket knife. I never wanted to be in there again. After 4 years, I saw it again, but it was even worse. I hadn't seen it in so long that I'd almost forgotten about it. I had my best friend over to spend the night again, and we had been having the usual preteen fun since I was 12, and he was 13. Doing stuff like watching movies, staying up later than we should, the usual stuff. By the time we actually went to sleep, it was really late, and everyone else in the house was already asleep. I woke in the middle of the night in my dim room, to him shaking my shoulder. I opened my eyes slightly and asked what was wrong. He asked why I had a cat, even though I was allergic to them. I gave him a really confused look and asked what the hell he was talking about, and he pointed. Opposite of my bed was a computer desk, in front of the window. My room was a bit of a mess, so I didn't see anything at first. But when I did, I was horrified. Sitting in the leg space of my desk was a freakishly large gray tabby cat. It was tall enough that its ears, or whatever was left of them rather, were almost touching the keyboard tray. I tried to rationalize it as me dreaming, or a window had been left open, and it wandered in. As I did, it stared at me with knowing eyes, too wise for such a creature, and full of hunger. It opened its mouth and let out a long yowl, and I saw its teeth were longer than seemed logical, so I sat up to get ready to leave. It started slowly walking toward us, like a lion on the prowl. Slow and careful steps. As it did, chunks of fur, skin, and muscle fell off. We both screamed and ran for the door. As it leapt at us just as the door closed, I heard it thud against the door, and I held the door to the handle to keep it closed, crying. Some clawing for a while, then silence. I looked, and there was its eye watching me through the keyhole in the door. My friend started banging on my parents' bedroom. My brother was already up and running from his room. He had a small pocket knife out ready to defend me, his little brother. I was leaning back to keep the door closed, shaking my head with my eyes closed and crying. He saw its eye as well and jumped back in terror, then jammed his knife into the hole. We heard the cat yell out in pain, once, then silence. When he pulled out his knife, there were maggots on it, and he dropped it to the floor. My parents woke, saw the scratches covering the inside of my bedroom door, but thought we were all playing a joke, and were angry about being woken up in the middle of the night. My brother and my best friend spent the rest of the night in the living room, too terrified to go near the attic or my room. The next night, my parents tried to make me sleep in there, but I refused, so they let me sleep on the couch once more, but said only that one time. So I accidentally broke the window in my room. I knew my parents couldn't afford to replace it. I was severely punished, but it was worth it to have reason not to be in the room after dark. I know it doesn't seem possible for it somehow to get in my room, no problem, but not being able to get past a 12-year-old boy. But I didn't dare question too much. I was just thankful I was alive. The beast left me alone for another 4 years till I was 16, and had just moved out of that house into a new one. I was so thankful, but I had tried to push those memories aside as nothing more than a kid scared of the dark. After I moved, I went out with my girlfriend after school one day. We were just randomly driving about when we came to the road that led up the mountain. I froze and got chills thinking of it, and she asked me what was wrong. I said that was my old house that I lived in for more than 7 years. She decided she wanted to see where I grew up, no matter how much I protested. So up the mountain we went. It was the longest drive up that mountain road I could ever recall, but I suppose that was just because of the dread I felt, approaching that house which I had hoped to never see again. She drove up the destroyed driveway, which felt like it was jarring me out of my seat with all the ruts in the mud and gravel. We stopped outside the house, which was still a good distance from the front door. The house was still empty, which wasn't too surprising. I refused to get out, but she started walking up to the door. I told her not to go in, even if it was unlocked. She placed her hand on the door, and I screamed for her to come back. She finally did, then heard the hissing and yelling from inside, which made her jump. She didn't look at the window, but I already was. Through the window, beside the door, I saw it again. It was there, still watching me, rotting as I watched it. One eye fell out, the one my brother had stabbed, then all its fur, then skin, then muscle. It continued yelling, and I got out, dragged her back to the car to make her leave. What I hadn't noticed is that she turned the knob just enough for the door to be able to open. I guess the cat thing didn't notice at first, but boy was it pissed. When we got home, I tried to tell her everything that had happened, and what the thing was. She called me a psycho, said I needed to get help, and left me at home. I thought it was still at the house. It couldn't have followed me because it couldn't get out. Besides, how could it keep up with the car, especially without me noticing? So I thought I was safe to go out for a walk, to get rid of the stress of my girlfriend. I'd been walking for a bit in the woods around my new home, and it was starting to get dark, so I turned to head back. I started walking, then heard something else moving around, and picked up my pace. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a small gray tabby. I tried to believe it was just a normal stray, and I was really just crazy, had imagined it all. Then it started to grow. It was getting bigger, but its skin was just getting tighter. I closed my eyes, now almost running, but trying not to alarm it, so it didn't know I saw it. Maybe it would wait to attack if it thought it was still in hiding. Bones burst through its fur and flesh, and I saw its organs and guts start falling out. I could see my house, but so could the cat, and it stopped and crouched. I shouldn't say cat at this point, because it was the size of a cougar by now and was nothing but bones. I still couldn't help questioning how it was possible for nothing but bones to stay together and move. I couldn't hold back my terror anymore and broke into a run, pushing my legs as fast as I could. I could feel my lungs straining because of my asthma, my mind racing with terrible mental visions of what it might do if I stopped, my heart pounding, the smell of dead animal, the sound of each step, or rather leap it took. Its hunger and anger were so strong I could almost feel it. It was hungry, and I was its meal that was getting away. Luckily, I saw my parents' vehicle, so I knew someone would be there to help. I stopped just long enough to open the door, but that was long enough for it to catch up, and I felt a searing pain as I screamed, wrenching the door up. I heard the fabric of my jacket and shirt tear. I could feel something running down my back, and the pain wouldn't stop. I was getting lightheaded, but it wasn't there anymore. It didn't follow me in. I was safe for now. My mother screamed at the sight of my gored back and started yelling something about 911 to my father. Everything was getting black, and I thought this was the end. My mom started talking to me, telling me to stay awake, asking what happened. I could only get out a few words between the pain and the shortness of breath. I heard my dad on the phone frantically saying something about me and blood everywhere. Cat, big, scary, dead. Then I passed out. Next thing I knew, I was waking up in the hospital. I started to move and felt pain shoot through my back. She asked what had happened, and for fear of her not wanting to believe me, I told her I didn't know. She told me what I'd said, and that everyone is guessing I was attacked by a cougar that had run off when it saw more people. She assumed the dead part was me thinking I was going to die. I'm 20 now, and it's spring. Same time of the year it's been every other time I've seen it. I keep seeing something peering at me from the way back home to work in the trees. I see that knowing eye. One eye ruined. That skeletal body with abnormally long teeth. In some ways it reminds me of pictures I've seen of skeletons of saber-toothed tigers, but all of its teeth are long. Not just the fangs, but the fangs are the longest. It still has its claws. Every night it seems to be closer and closer to my home, like it's taunting me with the knowledge that it soon will come for me. I'm sitting at the library right now typing. Last night it was almost there, only a few blocks away. I haven't told anyone about this till now, but I'm telling you. I know you might not believe it, but you're my best friend. I probably won't be around much longer, and someone needs to know what really happened and how those morbid scars really got on my back. If I do die this time, don't try to find it. I don't think it can die. I did some research about that house. Apparently some family used to live there. When the mother left, the father eventually went nuts and killed the kids, then himself. He killed the kids in the room that was mine. That must be why that hole was there. Then he took the bodies up to the attic and killed himself too, and the cat got stuck up there with him. When they were found, they realized the cat had started eating the bodies for food and tried to attack the police officers. It was then shot. It makes me wonder how I saw the skeletons of the family at all. Shouldn't they have been moved and buried and all that? Please make sure that thing can never hurt anyone again. It seems to have some grudge for me, even though I guess I'm the one who let it out. I pray that it never hurts anyone again.